very Presbyterian at that point. Nobody asked me to be on the PNC. But, you know, it was a big question in my mind. Excuse me, Patrick, but how can this young blind guy be a pastor? So, my apologies. And I guess as an engineer, I'm paid to be skeptical but not cynical, and that means give people a chance. And I say from my heart to one of my very, very best friends, it's been an honor to serve on session under your lead and to be a member of the congregation under your leadership. I do want to read a little bit of what Patrick wrote in the church newsletter. It says his final pastoral newsletter. And he goes through a litany that says, when you called me as your pastor 7 years ago, you told me that you wanted my help in taking all of the love that is Westminster out beyond your doors into your community. And wow, you have done that. I was looking at the photos for the past 7 years, and he says, I'm not going to go through the whole list, it's long, but LGBTQ, personal care pantry, demonstrations and vigils for racial justice, soup kitchens, prison ministry, Scouts, the women's ministry. Thank you much, Siobhan, for getting that started. And services from animal blessings to the permaculture park on Earth Day, to veterans and services of healing. And he hasn't named everything, and I couldn't begin to name everything. And he thanks the congregation for doing all of this. And I say, yes. And our congregation was very glad in our hearts, giving our spirit and grace and receiving his for the whole time that he's been here. And friend, Pastor, I love you. I wish you absolutely the best for where you're headed, and I know the Holy Spirit will lead you. And on a personal note, Patrick also led me through a very, very troubling time in my life. I'm not going to get into that very much, but my wife suffered a stroke and has memory and cognitive problems, and as an engineer, I should be able to solve everything. Well, trust me. Being a caregiver, particularly being a sole caregiver, is not in the engineering handbook. So Patrick and a couple other people, I cannot tell you the debt of gratitude, because I know that the grace of the Holy Spirit came through Patrick, through Linda, through Siobhan, through who am I forgetting, Don, and through so many people at the church. Again, brother, thank you.
I'm Deb Thomas, a minister member at large. I've been a member of this presbytery since the mid-1990s, and I started off with getting very involved with Christian education. So I knew Linda from the Auburn Church since way back when. And at the time that Patrick and Jenna came into the presbytery, I had seen our Christian educator group sort of disband. I lost quite a few friends from that. And then when I became a pastor, I made more new friends, and a lot of those people retired. And when Patrick and Jenna came in, I remember them being introduced, and I thought, this is the shot of enthusiasm and excitement that this presbytery needs. And I'm so glad for all of the work that they've done here. I was the pastor in Weedsport for 9 years, and at that time, I don't know if Patrick knows this, his predecessor hosted a local clergy meeting once a month, and I used to go to that, so I heard lots of stories about the Auburn Church, Westminster, and I knew that they were in very good hands with Patrick, and I'm sure that he's done wonderful ministry with all of them. And then, after I left Weedsport, Garrett's wife, Mary Anderson, became pastor, and I was thrilled for them because Weedsport Church held a special place in my heart. And after Mary left, Jenna came in, and so I was just thrilled for them again. And now we've got Brian. So I know that, I can see God's hand in all of this. And I, for one, am really going to miss both Patrick and Jenna. They've been such a boon to this presbytery. And we need enthusiastic people, and I know wherever they go, they're gonna spread their enthusiasm, their love for God, their example of Christ-likeness. Patrick and I served together on the committee to find a resource presbyter before, and boy, I was so impressed with his excitement. And when we had our Zoom meetings and just the prayers and everything, it was just like I knew that God will always overlook this presbytery and help us, and we're going to miss you, both you and Jenna, a lot, and your family. It's been so wonderful to see your family grow, and you've been through an awful lot, and we thank you for everything.
Hi, I'm Sandy Kreplin. I'm clerk of session at Weedsport, and Deb just took away basically everything I was going to say. But we had the honor of having Deb as our minister, followed by Garrett's wife, Mary. And when we lost Mary, we were crushed because she was a wonderful person. Deb was a wonderful person. Fortunately, Mary came in very quickly after Deb left as our interim, and then was very nicely allowed to stay. COVID was taking over. We were worshiping only at home by Zoom and using Senate Federated Church as our minister. Karen Seamus very nicely connected us with Jenna, and she was a breath of fresh air. And she started with us in October of 21 and stayed until February when Brian came. But she's enthusiastic. I know probably a lot of you don't know her much because she hasn't been able to come because of the young children. And we were there when their second baby was born, and we had to scramble because the child came very early and we were not prepared, but we survived. But Jenna is a lovely, lovely lady, and she brought some more fresh air to us. And I think she helped us get over the grief of losing Mary and COVID and everything that we had to go through at that particular time. But she is missed, and we hope you have a wonderful time. I'm so happy for her with her new role, and I think she's a wonderful person. And Patrick, you actually did your ministry, your talk before your neutral pulpit. We were their neutral pulpit, and we met them then, and we liked them then, so I wish them all the best.
Know Patrick through the leadership team. He has been a wonderful, loving, caring support person. He has kept us on track and on task with humor and graciousness, and he will be much missed. We have gone with the family to their losses and their griefs and their joys. You have a wonderful family, and I wish you all the best.
On a personal note, Patrick has been a gifted presence in the lives of our church members and also in my family. And he had and has the authentic faith that captured the hearts of the residents at Westminster Manor, including my Aunt Irene, who in her last couple of years at age 103 and 104 was extremely impressed with this very young pastor who had a maturity and an empathy and a gift that far belied his early 30s years. And recently, the other end of the rainbow, in our church, we were gifted with a really terrific rendition of Fred Rogers on Mr. Rogers' Day, with the disclaimer that none of us knew how hard it is to sing and change clothes at the same time in public on Facebook. In the 7 years that Patrick's been with us, we have grown and moved our congregation outside of our walls. And Patrick is going to leave a hole, not in the hearts of the people at Westminster, but also in the hearts of so many people in the community of Auburn. He's been a gift to all of us. We haven't quite figured out how we're going to ever manage to follow all the threads and all the trails that he has been blazing for us. And your spiritual walks are really a good example of that, and there's one more left. He saw us through the COVID years and taught us all how to become comfortable and to embrace technology, from worship entirely in his study with only Patrick to look at, which was not too unpleasant or anything, but and moved us into the sanctuary where we can stream our worship services on Facebook Live. And we're reaching people all across the United States now. We have grown so much in our ability to minister in new ways because of Patrick and his, as you've heard already, his enthusiasm and his energy. It's just a gift. So most of us at Westminster, like Roger, are going to go home and cry in our beverage of choice. And the selfish part of us is going to go home and cry in the beverage of our choice. The Christian part of us is grateful to God for giving Patrick this opportunity, for Patrick and Jenna, Emerson and JoJo to go back to home and to have relationship time with Patrick's father and other family members in a way that's not possible with them living in separate cities at this point. So for that, we're grateful, but selfishly, we're just grieving and crying. What can I say? Yeah, it just gets hard. It's just really, really hard. But the happy message I have to share with you is that you're all invited to a party. So Westminster is planning a farewell dinner for Patrick on Friday night, June 9th, 5 o'clock in our great hall. And the invitation will officially be issued via Presbytery Matters, so watch your e-news for that. But I'm just giving you a heads up. So check your calendars. Friday night, June 9th, Westminster Church, Auburn, New York. A chance to celebrate and roast and say goodbye to Patrick. Thank you.
Everybody else is talking.
Why not?
I want to thank you all for the love and all that you have said. Yeah.
I forgot the love. Patrick has just multiplied the love in our congregation untold times.
All right, Patrick has the microphone here, so.
Jenna's sorry she couldn't be here today. She is with the children right now. She's at a birthday party for 4 and 5-year-olds. So we weren't sure who's going to have it harder today, the 4 or 5-year-old birthday party or Presbytery. But sorry she couldn't be here for this time, but she is so grateful also. And this is the Presbytery that ordained her, right, to a validated ministry with organ donation, providing care to those grieving, and helping them explore saving other lives. You did that, and so this Presbytery will always hold a very special place for her. She has been a bridge pastor to many of your congregations. And many of those tried to get her to stay as a pastor, but she at the time, felt really called to focusing on our family. But the great news is, as we make this transition, we're going to be switching. It's her turn. So she's exploring call to full-time ministry, hopefully as a pastor in the Cincinnati area, while I'm called to care for my dad and our children. And we as a presbytery, we've been through so much together. We've done great work together. But what I will remember the most is just how you have loved us. When I first came here, I was told there had been some hurt in this presbytery, right? Some trust issues, some woundedness over the years, but the presbytery I have experienced is such a caring and loving presbytery. This is the presbytery that I stood before and cried openly for 5 minutes, and you just accepted it when our children were stillborn. And Jenna almost died. You were there for us. You've been there for us for our adoptions of Emerson and Josephine, for our ministries. You've just been there for us, and you've loved us, and you've been there as our friends. And I've seen you do that for so many other people, through cancer, through loss, through suicide, through depression, through the pandemic, through racial injustice, and just so much. And I know we're a small presbytery and we're spread thinly and it's hard, and many of our churches are just trying to make it day to day, but just to take a moment to appreciate how beautiful you are, and how God has been at work among you to love each other, which really, after everything is said and done, is all the church really is about. And loving God and each other. And you have done that, and we have been the recipient of that grace from you. And so I say thank you. Thank you.